I see a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for joining. Makes me happy to see all of you on this call here. I think we'll go ahead and start it. We'll start it with a brief introductory video of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and his thoughts on Gandhi.
In the capacity of an opponent, I have a feeling that I know him better than most other people because he had opened his real fangs to me and I could see the inside of the man. You see, while others who generally went there as devotees saw nothing of him except the external appearance which he had put up as a Mahatma. And so I say that I understand him better than most of the people who have associated themselves with him can say.
So how would you sum up what you found in him?
So far as India is concerned, he was, in my judgment, an episode in the history of India, never an epoch maker. His memory is kept up because the Congress party annually, gives a holiday either on his birthday or some other day connected with some event in his life, has a celebration. Now if you read the two papers, you will see how Mr. Gandhi was deceiving the people. In the English paper, he posed himself as an opponent of the caste system and of untouchability, and that he was a Democrat. But if you read a Gujarati magazine, you will see him a more orthodox man. He has been supporting the caste system, the Varnashram Dharma.
So you would say Gandhi was an orthodox Hindu?
Yes, he was absolutely an orthodox Hindu. He was never a reformer. He has no dynamics in him. All this talk about untouchability was just for the purpose of making the untouchables drawn into the Congress. That was one thing. And secondly, he wanted that the untouchables should not oppose his movement, Swaraj.
Thank you so much for watching this video and for being here. I now invite Eugene Owens of Los Angeles Public Library to kick off this event.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Eugene Owens. I'm an adult services librarian for the Exposition Park Regional Library in South Central Los Angeles. Please welcome Siddhartha Valicharla, Saswathi Natta, Jyoti, Chavan, who are going to talk to us about the caste system, untouchability, and arranged marriages. We're looking forward to a wonderful program, and thank you again for joining us from wherever you are. And thank you for our hosts tonight for contributing their time to us so we can learn more about this culture. With that, I will pass the mic to Jyoti Chavan, who will be our host for the evening's program. Please welcome Jyoti, everyone.
Hello everyone, JP. My name is Jyoti Chavan and I'm going to be your host for this evening. A little about me, I'm a third-year undergrad Dalit student at University of Georgia. Although I was born in America, I spent most of my life in India. I was raised there. I was a little girl growing up, and my parents were strong and proud Dalits, and they always made sure that I was in touch with my background, and they always taught me about Dalit history. So I'm really glad to be given this opportunity to share this with everyone and be a part of this discussion that's so close to my heart. I'm looking forward to hearing from our presenters, Siddhartha, Valicharla, and Saswathi Natta. I've met them and I've gotten to know them over the past few days, and it's been amazing getting to know them. They're really inspirational people, and I'm going to give them this chance to talk a little bit about themselves and the work that they do. So Sid and Saswathi, you guys can go ahead and talk about yourselves.
Okay, thank you so much, Jyoti. Jyoti mentioned that she only knows me for over a few days, but I know her dad for about 10 years now. We met at a convention where a lot of backward castes and untouchables and tribals gather up once every year. That was 10 years ago, so I've kept in touch with Sandeep, Chavan. So I do know Jyoti's family for a long time now. I myself am from the untouchable community. I moved to America around 2003, and every interaction that I had with either Americans or even other second generation South Asians always felt like there was no representation that untouchables and backward caste people had. It was a very monolithic version of caste Hindus or Savarnas. You will see me use those words interchangeably for privileged caste people. So I just started chatting and letting people know that India is a lot varied. There are different perspectives there, different people of different castes, and their lives are all not Taj Mahal, Bollywood, and 7-day long weddings. There are issues, oppression, and everything. So that brought about me giving more and more talks to where beyond talking with friends, it became events like this. And this is one of the things that I'm doing now. And I'm so glad that the public library has given me this opportunity. And we are doing this online. So welcome, everybody. Hopefully you will learn something. You'll make us all think, and we'll figure this out together. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing that, Sid. My name is Saswathi Natta. I am of Dalit origin as well. My family moved to the US when I was 5, so I didn't get a sense of how caste separates people in India until much later. I knew about it in theory because my family would teach me and we would talk about it, but I think I grew up sort of fairly protected in the US, so it took me a while to understand and sort of examine this identity of mine. And I went back and lived in India for 2 years right after college, and that's when I really encountered it firsthand. And through how caste networks work and how having graduated from a US university, I somehow and with having an American accent, it was really clear to me that I was allowed into a lot of upper caste, very privileged spaces because I sort of I'm read as upper caste. And so that was really interesting because I knew who I was. It's just that people assumed I was upper caste and therefore treated me in a different way. And so that was a very interesting experience of being, an adult in India for the first time going back. And then I applied back to graduate school after that experience. I applied to sociology. And now I'm a PhD student in sociology, and I actually study gender and caste issues. And my dissertation work, I went back for field work, and I interviewed upper caste or dominant caste women and Dalit women with the same set of interview questions to see how those two answers would compare. So I'm working through transcribing all of that and analyzing it, so I can share some of that if anybody's curious about that. So I'm really excited that Sid started this initiative. When I was growing up in the US, I think with other people other than the Ambedkarite group and my family, we didn't really talk about caste. So in some ways, when I bring it up now, I think it feels a little bit like coming out of the closet. So I think other people are like Sid are leading the way with that, and I'm trying to become more confident about talking about it and sort of educating other people about caste identity and how there's a many minority groups in India, and how the Indian diaspora is really, really diverse. So looking forward to how this event goes. I look forward to all of your questions.
Thank you so much, Sid and Saswathi. It was really great hearing from you too, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what you guys have in store for us. Personally, as a Dalit, it makes me feel really, really proud to have you guys put all this work into progressing this community. And as the host, I will be in charge of just the questions. Any questions that you guys might have, please message me privately in the Zoom chat, or you can just message it to everyone on the Zoom chat, or you can message it to me if you want to remain anonymous. Nishant would also be helping me with the questions, so you can also message it to him. He'll also be moderating the conversation in the chat, so that's just there. Also, Nishant would be sending out a link in the chat for the check-in. It's not mandatory, but we would really appreciate it if you guys would just check in and let us know if you'd like to hear more about this events like these in the future. So that would be a really helpful thing to do. Please go ahead and click on the link and just answer the questions. It's a very short survey. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to hearing this presentation and learning more about Dalit history myself, being as I'm part of the community. And I will hand over the stage to Sid. Sid, you can go ahead and start.
Thank you so much. Guys, before we start, I want to just acknowledge the times we are in. Everybody is struggling with COVID, perhaps, with their loved ones being all over, maybe not able to see them or touch them or feel them. So just before we start, I just wanted us to all to take a collective deep breath. Thanks for being here with me. I will be talking about caste system, untouchability, and arranged marriages, and also about Dr. Ambedkar. Most of you who joined right at the cusp of the start heard Dr. Ambedkar's video and how he was a contemporary of Gandhi and what he thought about Gandhi and Swaraj. Swaraj in Hindi or Marathi means freedom or self-rule. It can be either one of those things. I'll also share a little bit about present-day India. This is a lot to cover, about 3,000 years, give or take 100 years. So my talk is mostly broad and generic. I will also take questions like Jyoti is collecting them, and Saswathi is here to answer any questions we have. But remember that this is broad and generic. If you have very specific questions, we can take them, but we may have to get back to you later. So just remember that. So let's start with caste system and untouchability. And let's start with something which most of us are familiar with. So here's a slide, and these are Hindu gods and goddesses. Most of you, I think, can recognize that on the leftmost is Rama, Krishna, and Kali. I start with these familiar pictures because I then try to contrast these gods and how they are represented with representation of other religions. Here you see Buddha, Jesus, and Allah. The question that I ask after showing these two slides is, what is the main difference that you see between the representation of Hindu gods and goddesses and representation of other religion? And the most important thing that you see is that almost all Hindu gods are weaponized. So I want to then understand, and this is a lens that I always apply when I talk about Hindu gods or Hindu culture or Hindu tradition. I try to apply reason, truth, and my own experience, something you may have known, if you have read Buddhism or something. So I try to apply the principles of Buddhism wherein everything I want to understand is seen through the lenses of truth, experience, and reason. So here is something which we need to understand. So this slide here shows why Hindu gods manifest themselves time and again. In Mahabharata, Krishna lets Arjuna know that whenever and wherever there is a decline in lawfulness, he manifests himself as an avatar. The main task for this avatar is to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants and to re-establish lawfulness. So this leads us to the second question that I always have, which is, what exactly are these laws that these weaponized Hindu gods are upholding? So we don't have to think too much because all of this is encoded in Hindu scriptures. So the second thing, what we can then look at is these laws that are encoded. We have a couple of examples actually. In this slide, you're actually seeing a Brahmin complain to Rama that a Shudra, a low caste person, is actually reading the Vedas and actually trying to do a penance in order to actually go to heaven. And this is a big no-no because as for caste system, Shudras are not allowed to read the Vedas. So in this case in Ramayana, Rama, the god who has taken the avatar of a human, kills and executes Shambhuka because per caste law, he is not supposed to read the Vedas. A similar example can be seen in Mahabharata. Again, the privileged few have the ability to get education, to lead a better life. In this scene, you're seeing kneeled a person called Ekalavya. He is not of Kshatriya origin. He's also not of a Brahmin origin. However, he has in his mind taken Dronacharya, the teacher, and in his mind as his teacher, and he has learned how to actually use the bow and arrow. He's become a great marksman. Dronacharya condemns him for actually picking him as the teacher and for learning a skill which is not supposed to be learned by an Adivasi here, a tribal. So in exchange, so basically what Dronacharya is asking here is for Ekalavya to give Guru Dakshina, basically an offering to the Guru. As an offering, he has actually asked for the right thumb of Ekalavya. So basically, he has rendered Ekalavya as Ekalavya's education useless. Ekalavya now can't actually use a bow and arrow. You can't without your thumb. So that's the second instance which we can see. So those are basic instances and examples, but what exactly do the actual law, books of Hindus talk? I'll let you give a quick read of this slide here. Oh, I apologize for those who might be on your cell phones or smaller devices if you can't read. So maybe I'll go ahead and read here. For a Shudra, who is a backward caste person, the Lord has prescribed to serve meekly those other three castes. For a woman, Manusmriti says that day and night a woman must be kept in dependence by the males of their families. For a Brahmin, you can see the distinction in the law set up for Shudras and women as opposed to Brahmin here, wherein a Brahmin is allowed to steal grain, base metals, cattle. He can have intercourse with women who drink. He can slay women, Shudra, Vaishyas, or Kshatriyas. And these are all considered minor offenses. And the king is actually supposed to inflict upon any Shudras who give pain to Brahmanas various kinds of corporal punishment. It's pretty straightforward to see that a privileged caste person can easily even see a little slight as painful, and therefore corporal punishment is actually inflicted upon Shudras and women. So effectively, Hindu gods reincarnate themselves to uphold caste system. And in brief, caste system can be defined as a birth-based hierarchy where some are considered worthy by birth and some are deemed filthy by birth. And the biggest problem here is that those who have been deemed filthy cannot cleanse themselves. They cannot move out of such an issue that they have. And those who have been claimed as worthy, Brahmins by birth, they have to do nothing to prove their worth. And in fact, as the laws state, they can be a scoundrel, they can be a womanizer, they can be murderers, they can commit any kind of atrocities, but they actually, all of those are considered little slights. So that is in brief what caste system is. And India today has these castes. There are about 3% Brahmins. There are about 15% Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, the second and the third rung of castes. Then there is a fourth rung called Shudras, who are about 50% of India's population. And then the final 15% of the population is untouchables, who are not even part of the actual original caste system. They come way afterwards, post-Buddhist period. And these are outcasts. They are street sweepers. They they do all sorts of menial jobs which deal with either excreta, human excreta, or dead animals and such. So this picture gives a basic breakdown of caste system. I promise you there is one more slide, and I'll take a pause because this is a lot to kind of take in. So one more slide, which will give the history of how this happened. So basically, if you see the green highlighted portion in the map, it is where the Indus River flows. And about 3,000 years ago, we have what's called Indus Valley civilization. Around the same time, Aryans, Eurasians from like the Ural Mountains, modern day Iran, I would think, and close by also to Europe, started coming over coming over into India, into this Indus Valley. As they came over into this Indus Valley, by might and corruption, they started to slowly annihilate all the Indus Valley civilization, and they took over. And once they took over, they formed this caste system where they always presented themselves as somebody who is privileged, who is pure and clean. And also, while warring in between themselves, they kind of fell within their own ranks of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. All three of them are in some way, shape, or the form related to these Aryans who have migrated from the Eurasians, but it's just that through their own internal conflicts and power struggles and everything, they just fell into those three rungs. And Brahmins kept the supreme authority in one way by stating this. The main statement that Brahmins make is, the whole of universe is in the hands of gods. Gods are in the hands of mantras. And mantras are in the hands of Brahmana. So by corollary, Brahmins own everything, and even gods have to listen to Brahmins. And in some way, and actually it's not even in some way, in a very written and very assured way, they claim to be gods on earth. So that's where the initial caste system starts, where Brahmins start to call themselves gods on earth. So that's when, if you now look at the timeline, hopefully again, I apologize for those with like small screens. Around 2500 BC is when Aryans came into India. The first person who actually opposed caste system and tried to form a society of liberty, equality, and fraternity is Buddha. Around 200 BC, Manusmriti, the laws that I just read in the prior slide, were coded. And these actually also show that these Buddhists who did not go back into the caste fold were actually kicked out of the villages. And also these Buddhists who were kicked out of the village, having no sustenance or whatnot, kept on eating meat and such stuff. So Buddhists who were kicked out and who also continued to eat beef are the ones who became present day untouchables, and also Adivasis or tribals. We do have a lot of Muslim invasions post Buddhist and Hindu Brahmin rule. But the one thing we need to realize is that when Muslims came over and took over India, they did have a big issue with idolatry and polytheism, but they limited their interest in only taking care of that. So they did knock down some temples. They did execute a few staunch Hindus or Brahmins. But later on, they kind of made peace with the whole thing, and enough Indians converted to Islam. And we have Muslims now, a large portion of them. But Muslim leaders actually did not do anything to affect the caste system. They just let that be as it was. Nanak, who came up with Sikh religion, was one of those who fought against caste system. So we kind of still see a little bit of caste system in Sikh religion, but it's not native to Sikh religion. Then come the Britishers in 1600. And finally, we have the most important person who has emancipated untouchables in modern history, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Some of you have heard his name before. Those of you who joined right on time could also have seen a short video of him giving a commentary on what he thought about Gandhi. So this is the history of India so far, and basically caste system in a nutshell. I want to end here, and one of the things I have not touched upon here is arranged marriages. It actually doesn't need 100 slides to explain arranged marriages. The most simple reason we have arranged marriages in India is because that's the only way you can keep caste system intact. There is no greater virtue in arranged marriages. There is no greater love. There is no no, even if we say that, well, arranged marriages last for a long time or whatnot, and those are all side effects of it, but arranged marriages doesn't even need a slide. Basically just know that to uphold caste system is why Indians, Hindus practice arranged marriages. I would like to take a pause, like I said here, and see where the audience is at this point in time.
Right, Sid. So I actually do have a couple questions for you if you'd like to answer that.
Sure.
So Abibs asked a really good question, one that I also have always thought about. And they asked, is the term backward caste okay? It hits me hard in the gut and I would prefer not to use it personally. And that's something I've always thought, like, is it okay to refer to yourself as being from a lower caste? Or I would like to hear your thoughts on that. Or what are some other terms that we could use instead?
Present day India uses Bahujan, which in English would translate to majority people, because backward castes are the majority people. Here's the thing. It depends on how you're using the term and what you're using the term for. Are you using this term to motivate yourself and actually bring the community together? So I think it's the purpose that defines the word that you use. So if you have a backward caste party and you win elections and rule India with your 50% population, hey, that's fine. And also, along with these things, one of the questions people never ask is it okay to call yourself a Hindu actually? I don't know who asked this question, but is Hindu a word that we should be using for the religion itself actually? When Brahmins have taken Hindu, a word which actually means kafir, a slave, a dark colored person, a thief, a lucha, lafanga, by Persian language by Muslims, Brahmins have happily embraced it because it gives them power. By calling all of Indians Hindu, they suddenly became the majority vote bank, right? So I think it's okay to use the word if it feels right to you and if it gives power to you. And use how Brahmins have, the same Brahmins who pushed back on the use of the word Hindu. Dayanand Saraswati in about late 1800s really pushed back on the word Hindu, saying that you may use it for everybody else, but not Brahmins, because we are not slaves. We are not dark skinned. We are not thieves, luchas, lafangas. Use it for OBC, SC, ST, whoever you want to. But around 1920, when they realized that being under British Raj, we will be going under adult franchise, they needed a vote bank. If they still distinguish Hindus and Brahmins, they would not have had a vote bank. So they adopted it. And now everybody is a Hindu. And what is Brahmin rule is mislabeled as Hindu Raj. So I think it's okay. But again, I can't tell the person who asked this question whether they should be using it or not, but use it wisely.
I have a take on some of the questions. So the term backward caste, from my understanding when I went to India and spent time there, it's used in direct opposition to forward caste. So it's not like, and when people use it in India, at least people who haven't thought about it in terms of like, it sounds offensive, it's used almost like a scale and like almost signifies the hierarchy of which group of castes is doing better socioeconomically and which group of castes is not. So there are laws and policies for a group of Shudra castes that are called other backward castes as a grouping that reserves certain like affirmative action type seats in colleges and jobs for that group. The way that there were reserved seats in colleges and government jobs for Dalit people. So that's my take on that. And the term Dalit, from my understanding, it was a term that was like created as an ownership of the identity to say, yes, we are oppressed, but we're taking that back and owning it. And so we choose to call ourselves that. And that was in direct opposition to a term Harijan that Gandhi used to use, which was much more patronizing, like, oh, these poor people that we need to take care of because they can't do it themselves kind of term. But in India, when I was doing my interviews and stuff, many villages I went to still called the Dalit or untouchable area where people live. All the villages are segregated, by the way, by caste. So that community part of where the lower caste people live would still be called the Harijan Basti. And so Dalit is a term that was meant to take ownership back of the caste identity. And you know, words develop and it's a shifting thing, but that's my take on those two things.
Well, Saswathi, piggybacking off of that, there's also another question about this. Is Dalit like similar, or the connotation, is it similar to the N-word? As in, like, someone who's not a part of the Dalit community, should they be allowed to like use it, since it technically means like broken?
From my understanding, it is not like the N-word at all, because we say Dalit, we do not say the N-word, we say N-word. So already you can see a difference. But Dalit is more of a label to refer to that community. Sometimes the word Dalit is used interchangeably with the term scheduled caste. And a schedule is a list. And this was a list that Ambedkar and people writing the Indian Constitution wrote up of castes that were untouchable castes that were to help, you know, uplift them. We're supposed to be given like reserved seats and, you know, affirmative action type policies. And so it was a schedule of castes, and that is used interchangeably with Dalit, even though technically they're not interchangeable. Dalit is a term that's like, we're taking ownership of this identity, versus scheduled caste it means it's referring to a list of castes that a group of policymakers put together.
Thank you, Saswathi. Thank you for your take on this. And we don't have any more questions as of now, so Sid, you can go ahead and go with your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Jyoti. We're going to go on to the next section. We really want to understand who Dr. Ambedkar is and get an idea of him. The easiest way to describe Dr. Ambedkar is that he is the emancipator of the Indian untouchables. Nobody else before him, nobody else after him has done what to the untouchables what he has done. He came about onto the India's scene in early 1900s, 1910, 1915. Let me actually share slides again. It will help us all walk through them. So Dr. Ambedkar is the emancipator of Indian untouchables. The main question that we want to ask around Dr. Ambedkar, at least I am using this question to help us understand more about Dr. Ambedkar, is the same question that he asked. When he was in New York, Lala Lajpat Rai approached Dr. Ambedkar and said, please join us in the freedom struggle. And the freedom struggle that Dr. Lala Lajpat Rai was talking about was freedom of India from the British. At which point Dr. Ambedkar asked the question in response, like, whose freedom are you talking about? Is it freedom of the country, or is it freedom of the people of the country? And we are going to go on that journey now in the next couple of slides to understand what answers Dr. Ambedkar got when he asked this question. And these were not directly told to him. I'm just going to pick 3 instances during freedom struggle to share with you the freedom that the Brahmins were fighting for and the freedom that Dr. Ambedkar was fighting for. The most famous saying in India's independence was, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. And this was said by Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Most of us in high school, in primary school or middle school, whenever we were taught about this, we actually become proud of ourselves and say, oh my God, this actually means something to me. But even now I felt like proud because it's a statement of autonomy that he's making. But nobody, no school in India or no textbook in India teaches that this same Bal Gangadhar Tilak, after saying this statement, also made a statement in his newspaper called Kesari, which was actually, he made a statement on a podium and it was quoted in the Kesari. The thing he said was, Teli, Tamoli aur Kunbaton ko kya, Sansad mein jaake kya hal chalana hai. I'll repeat it in English now. Basically, what Bal Gangadhar Tilak is asking from that podium is, do those who are farmers, potters, and some other of lowly caste, what job do they have by going to the parliament session? Do you see the shift in the statements? In one statement, he's saying Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. And we Indians, we listen to it and think that, oh my God, he's fighting for our birthright and we need to have it too. But the birthright that Bal Gangadhar Tilak is talking about is the Brahman's birthright to rule alongside any ruler, be it Muslim rulers, be it other Reddy, OBC rulers, Shudra rulers or whatnot. It doesn't matter who the ruler is. Brahmins want to rule along with them, and Britishers did not allow them to do that, which is why, in fact, Brahmins finally came together and revolted against the Britishers, because Muslims invaded us. There was no revolt. In fact, it's a completely different religion. So this is one thing which Dr. Ambedkar noticed, that when Brahmins speak of Swaraj, they're actually just talking about Swaraj of their own caste. The second event that happens is Roundtable Conference. Actually, most of you know about Pune Pact. And those you who don't know, just note it down and read about it. What I'm gonna share with you guys today is something that most of you may not know. Before Pune Pact happens, where Gandhi strips the untouchables of the communal award, a much more meaner thing is done by Gandhi at the Roundtable Conference in London itself. At the end of second Roundtable Conference, when Gandhi realizes that Dr. Ambedkar will get his way and he will get separate electorates for untouchables, Gandhi, one of those evenings, actually invites all of Muslim League delegates for dinner. Shaukat Ali Khan, Liaquat Ali Khan, Jinnah, and everybody. And he throws a big feast for them, and he tells them, Congress did not approve your 14 points that you wanted, but oppose Dr. Ambedkar tomorrow in the Roundtable Conference. Don't let him have his separate electorates, and I will sign on behalf of Indian National Congress a blank piece of paper saying that your 14 demands will be accepted by Indian National Congress. This is the depths of meanness that Gandhi falls to oppose Dr. Ambedkar. Now, Muslims more or less have a lot of integrity. So they actually did not go through with the plans that Gandhi asked them to, and they actually informed Dr. Ambedkar that that Gandhi tried to play this card. And in fact, these Muslim League leaders tell Gandhi that, how do you expect us in all conscience to oppose Dr. Ambedkar when we ourselves are enjoying separate electorates? Because even before Roundtable Conference, Muslims had separate electorates. Anglo-Indians had separate electorates. I think Sikhs may also have had separate electorates. And in fact, Gandhi never opposed those people, but only when Indian untouchables, a large mass of people, were going to have separate electorates and a way to choose and make their own destinies, when Gandhi opposed and shrunk to such meanness. So this shows again that it proves to Dr. Ambedkar and everybody that Indian National Congress, in the form of Gandhi or whoever, is actually not looking out for the countrymen. Their Swaraj does not mean freedom of the Indian people. Let me check on time here, actually, because I think I gave you enough information. Actually, you know what? I'll leave it with those two things. And in fact, finally, one of the things we want to relate here is, I mentioned that post-Buddhism, India went back into Brahmin power through Sunga dynasty. So Dr. Ambedkar basically quotes that untouchables are all Buddhists, and the history of India is nothing but a history of mortal conflict between Buddhism and Brahmanism. So Buddhism encompasses all of these oppressed castes. let me take, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, so let me pause here and give you guys a chance to share your thoughts. Jyoti, are there any questions that have come up through this section?
Hi, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself, but I got it now. Yeah, there actually are a couple interesting questions, so I'll go ahead and give you the first one. So, so this person says that they read that it was the British who made it rigid in its, who made the caste system rigid in its practice, and that there was some mobility between castes before that. So is it fair to say that it has been progressively made rigid with each oppressor group that used this to rule over India and its people? And this was by Indunair.
The answer is no. The person who has asked this question can actually just look at the rule book of Manusmriti, which was written in 200 BC. Poor Britishers came in the 1600 AD. So I don't think anybody else, but the Brahmins actually have the need to enforce caste system. Britishers had no reason to enforce caste system or make it more rigid. The only thing they did is, in the beginning, they actually worked with the untouchables. They made Mahar regiment. They made some regiments with untouchables. And in fact, they were crucial for them to take over a lot of India. Before that, no untouchable was ever allowed to lift a weapon. I mean, you just saw the example of Ekalavya being asked to chop off his thumb. So to say that Britishers made the caste system rigid is baseless.
Relating to that, there's a person in the comments saying that the claim that the British made caste rigid is false. However, they did begin to establish a census, which contributed to the documentation of caste for government purposes. So they were just wondering if the role of the census is related to the notion that the British made the caste system rigid.
I can share a quick example as to when Brahmins actually felt the jolt with British rule. I think around 1600 or so, there is a king in Bengal called Raja Nandakumar or Nanda. One of the things this king, who's a Brahmin actually, does is he steals money from the exchequer's account. Which is, when you put the Brahmin lens on, the caste lens on, it's common. Like we read, one of the rules in Manusmriti was a Brahmin can kill, steal, whatnot. He just gets a slap on the hand. However, Britishers took him to court because by then it was British law that was in India, not Manu's law anymore, and he was hung to death. So this Brahmin who stole was hung to death when prior to him for like a millennia, there was no such corporal punishment given to a Brahmin. So one of the reasons why Brahmins then came together and said, uh-oh, Britishers are a problem for us because they are treating us as everybody else. Seems like the law is the same for everybody, is one of the reasons too why they decided, oh, we got to get these guys out of here, or at least get into a position where we are the rulers. Britishers can't do this to us. So Britishers in that way broke the caste system actually.
Let's answer one more question. So in the Japanese caste system, which ceased to exist in like circa 1870, people of a lower class had to talk differently to people of a higher caste, that is using honorifics. So do people of different castes use different forms of address with each other, either now or historically? And adding on to that, is there like, how do people identify each caste in Indian culture?
So I can answer that one. From my work in rural India, I think that's a hard yes. People of lower castes, when addressed by upper castes, they just call them by their name, or they call them like a very informal, like, hey, you kind of thing. And sometimes they'll call them by the caste name itself, which comes with a sense of derogatory connotation. And then when people of lower caste address upper caste people, I've seen that they will use forms of respect of saying, you are big people. Literally, the literal translation would be big people. So they are big people, we are little people. And so they'll have various forms of respect that they'll use, almost as when you would be addressing somebody who's your elder. So if that's happening now in villages, then I think it definitely happened historically and even more rigidly. Maybe Sid can answer that a little bit.
So one of the things is codified naming. Per Manusmriti, the name of a Brahmin should be pious. As soon as you hear the name, it should feel pious. The name of a Kshatriya should indicate valor. So maybe a name could be like Vijay or Digvijay. The name of a Vaishya should be calm, and it should feel like working class or whatnot. The name of a Shudra should actually evoke contempt. And the last name of a Shudra should show some kind of servile nature. So, for example, a name in Telugu, which is my native tongue, could be Pullanna Dasu. Pullanna, literally in English, would mean a sour man. And Dasu means a servant. So this person's name is sour man servant. So there is such strict codifications of such names. And there is a case where Dr. Ambedkar explains, either in Annihilation of Caste or Path to Salvation, where he explains that the Peshwas of Maharashtra, who are the Brahmins there, went to court when they figured out that some of the lower caste people were using Namaste as a way of greeting each other. They didn't like it. They said that they're trying to portray as us. So they actually went to court. I actually don't remember whether they won it or not. But yes, the answer is just like I have not read Japanese caste system, but I can just answer to the caste that that's true. Yes, there are codified ways how you address, name, act, behave.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Saswathi. I have a lot of questions to ask you, but would you like to go ahead with the presentation and get back to the questions later on? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Saswathi, do you want to present a little bit on gender and caste now?
Sure. I can do that, yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So you touched a little bit on arranged marriages. I can sort of segue from that point that you made, in that how arranged marriages are sort of what keeps the caste system running. And a central, like the key thing to that is the control of a woman's sexuality. And I'm going to make a comparison with America and how women's sexuality is sort of controlled in his, even now, but like historical times. So if we go back into like times when slavery was active, one of the worst things that could happen was if a white woman slept with a black slave man. And the reason that was one of the worst combinations was because if a white man slept with black women, all of the half black, half white children would still be slaves because their mother was a slave. So if it's a white woman, her child would be counted as white. And therefore, that is a thing that could topple the structure, right? So that was why it was really one of the worst offenses that could happen. Similarly, with the caste system, the sexuality of an upper caste woman is super controlled and was super controlled because the birth canal of an upper caste woman was seen as how souls that were sort of floating entered into the caste system as a certain caste. So if you had a lower caste man who slept with an upper caste woman, that is potentially the worst thing that could happen. Versus if an upper caste man slept with a lower caste woman, it didn't matter that much. Upper caste men went around raping and having mistresses that were lower caste women all the time. But it was really like the sexuality. So lower caste women had this double whammy of being both lower on the gender hierarchy and in the caste hierarchy. Therefore, in many ways, they had to face like sexual violence, and they had other forms of violence, but they were also supposed to just go on with life and keep working because they had to, keep doing things because they had to, because who else was gonna do it? The family needs food, that kind of thing, which is really similar to how Black women in the US have this, she's really strong and she keeps the family together kind of stereotype. And it's sort of like, it's like they're at the worst position, but they're expected to take on that challenge. Versus even in my own research and other researchers have stated that the sexuality of an upper caste woman is really, really controlled because of the need to uphold the caste system. So that's sort of my take on how gender and caste intersects. Does that make sense?
Here's an interesting question for you. Did you observe any relation between caste and the way in which women were addressed or treated by other men, or I guess by other people, but maybe their husbands or anything of the sort?
I did. So it seemed that lower or upper caste women were less knowledgeable about the world. So it seemed like they were more controlled. They stayed in the house more. Many of them didn't even partake in self-help groups, which were groups of women that where they taught each other financial literacy and, created a pool of money that they lent to each other, that kind of thing. Upper caste women didn't take as much part in those. And many times when I even asked permission, a lot of times upper caste women would say, oh, I have to ask my husband, can you come back later? Versus a lower caste woman would say, yes, or she would say, I'm busy now, can you come back later? So there would be that kind of difference. And many times in lower caste households, I did see some oppressive behavior between men and women, but in lower caste households, it seemed like the woman had more knowledge of the world. And a lot of times it was because she had to go out and work, like both husband and wife had to go out and work, and therefore in order to work she also learned more about finances. She knew what her husband was making and what she was making. They both did farm work together, or they were both laborers together, that kind of thing. So there was a level of equality. But that being said, in UP there was one village that I cannot forget, in which I was trying to ask lower caste women their permission to have an interview, and they did not feel confident enough to talk to me because I think they perceived me, one, as definitely upper caste and very, very privileged and from a different country or a different world. And so they didn't feel confident enough to talk to me. So they led me to an upper caste woman that sort of was like, it almost felt like she was presiding over them. And they were like, you talk to her, she speaks on our behalf, kind of thing. And when I was talking to this Brahmin woman, she was sitting on a bed and all the other lower caste women were sitting on the ground. And when an upper caste man walked by, all the lower caste women stood up immediately and covered their faces, because that was the thing to do. And I was just like caught by surprise. I didn't know what to do. And also I didn't let anyone know what my caste was, because I didn't want to change the dynamics of what people would say to me. But the upper caste woman didn't have to stand up and cover her face. So there was definite patterns of behavior that were ingrained in what I saw. I did not see this kind of thing in South India.
Thank you for sharing, Saswathi. I honestly think it's super interesting that you did all this, and it's something that I kind of want to I would love to just have another session about your experiences there, but
I'm still writing. I'll send you my dissertation when it's done.
Yes, that people in the comments are asking for that, so please share a link to the work that you do. And I'm gonna take this back to Sid so we can go back to the presentation, but all your questions will be answered at the end. So don't worry, guys.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. One of the things I wanted to do was we kind of traversed through history, applied a lens of reason, truth, experience, and really relied on evidence, either it be Manusmriti or anything, or historical facts, or even the census from the Britishers. I wanted to share a little bit about present day India and where we are today. I do want us all to realign ourselves with what the caste composition is in terms of the population percentage. So Brahmins are only 3%, 15% the others, 50% Shudras, and 15% untouchables. And I wanted to show modern India and give a little information about you along the 4 pillars of democracy. If we take legislature, there are 5 national level parties: Indian National Congress, BJP, Communist Party of India, Marxist, and Trinamool Congress. Needless to say, all 5 of these parties were founded by Brahmins or led by Brahmins, irrespective of who their face might be. Like, for example, BJP's face today is Modi. He's a backward caste person. However, the strings pulled behind are all Brahmins. So there you go, 100% of national parties are Brahmin parties. Executive branch, which administer all sorts of rules and laws, and at the county level, IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, Revenue Service, Forest Service, Administrative Service, Police Services. Of the 3% Brahmins, at least 50% of these posts are of Brahmins, and the others with the other upper castes. So between the three privileged castes, 90% of all roles are filled by them. As far as judiciary is concerned, 50% of Supreme Court judges are Brahmins. The rest 45%, bringing it to 95% again, is made up of upper castes, privileged castes. And then there are only 1 or 2 SC, ST Supreme Court judges, while the percentage is actually 15%. With regards to media, a paper that I would urge you guys to read has been recently come up with. Who Tells Our Stories Matters is an article that has come up by Oxfam, and it shows that in those people, key decision maker roles, whether it be newspapers, paper media, social media, reliable news channels or whatnot, not one key decision maker is from the SC, ST community, and very few even from the OBC community. So at least 90-95% of people are from privileged castes. So I just wanted to share that in terms of the 4 pillars of democracy. And here is where we can see what Dr. Ambedkar was afraid of when Britishers were going to transfer power to India. His question was, what sort of India are we going to have? And we all know, most of us call it Hindu Raj, but effectively it's Brahmin rule. So this is what Dr. Ambedkar was afraid of, and it has materialized today in terms of Brahmins having all key positions and being the rulers of India. I think let me stop here.
There was a question regarding the pyramid. The demographic percentage is missing 17%. So the question was just, is that like the Muslim Christian community? And there was another comment adding that it could be the Adivasis.
So some of those numbers probably do account for that, actually.
I saw a question somewhere before about, I think, how Buddhists are treated, or the Dalits who have switched to Buddhism. And I remember finding out that caste sticks even if you switch out into a different religion, and people who are from those states know. So in Andhra, for example, if you're Christian, it's pretty much understood that you're Dalit. If you are Buddhist in India, a lot of people will assume that you're Dalit. So it's like they'll ask about your religion and where you're from in order to identify caste. And even within the Sikh religion, there's like a subgroup of Ravidasi Sikhs who follow. Ravidas was one of the Sikh gurus who was Dalit, and Ravidasis are Dalit people. And within the Sikh religion, there's discrimination.
Since we're on the topic of religion, someone asked, if Hinduism is a Brahmin religion, then why do the SC, ST, and OBC stay Hindu?
Okay. So you're talking about people who have been not given the power of education and reasoning away from them for about 3,000 years. They've been told what to do. And like I said, there is a little bit of corruption when a census form goes out to a person's house. A census form in India has Christian, Buddhist, Muslim or whatnot, or Hindu and other or whatnot. So this census sheet is never given to the person in the house to fill out. So if you're at an SC house where a person can't read or write, or even if they can read or write, they'll just hold and say, well, we'll fill it out for you. Tell us, are you a Buddhist? This SC person says, no, I'm not a Buddhist. Are you a Sikh? No, I'm not a Sikh. Are you a Muslim? No, I'm not a Muslim. Are you a Christian? I'm not a Muslim. Okay, just tell me your caste. And then they enter the caste. And then these census people just check off Hindu. Basically, Hindu has become a default catch-all, which is why most people are just considered and branded as Hindu. But actually, what exactly is Hindu? And like I said, Hindu as a word did not exist in India's vocabulary up until the Muslim invaders came to India and called those that they have conquered and made slaves Hindus. And Dayanand Saraswati pushed back on it. And then in 1918, when British Parliament in England started off with adult franchise, Brahmins back in India realized that, oh my God, this British rule is going to come, or law is going to come to India, and every person will have a vote. So we need to build our vote bank. And that's when they started encroaching and calling everybody Hindu. But otherwise, you're just of your caste. There is no Hinduism. You're just of a caste, and you pay dakshina to the Brahmins. That's all there is. That is Brahmin religion. And in fact, you're right. Whoever asked this question, it's not Hindu religion. It's Brahmin religion called Hindu, and where everybody is just shoved in. I do see a lot of questions. Should we do more like a rapid fire, or do people want explanation based on each question?
Well, Sid, it's up to you. Do you have any more of the presentation left, or do you want to go ahead?
No,
and
I'm actually done with the presentation. Around 7:25 or so, if you can let me show one more last slide, that's all I want.
Yeah, all right, then I'll go ahead and ask the questions because there's like a list. So I'm gonna go in order and just try to like.
But by the way, I do want to thank all the participants for interacting and engaging. This is what makes it a good session, because we're all learning here. I'm learning too. I have a little bit of lived experience, I mean, and I have learned a couple of things, read a few books. So we're all learning here together. So thank you so much for asking all these questions.
All right, so the first question is, in the caste system, is racism at the core?
So way back in 3000, when it was 3000 year BC or 2500 BC, what was called Varna system came around, and Varna does mean skin and color. But you know, it's so way back in the past that it doesn't matter. It's not a color related thing anymore. It has morphed into what is exactly caste system. It can be equated, I think, to racism or anything. It's straight up a bunch of people, Brahmins, realizing that if we keep marrying within ourselves, endogamy, we will be priests, and we only teach the skills of priesthood to our kids and kids and kids. So that way, only we will be Brahmins and our progeny will be Brahmins. And then Kshatriyas looked at Brahmins and say, oh, they are making a little group and securing their privileges. We need to do the same thing. And then there is other castes, like a farmer's caste, Vaishyas did that, or a merchant class, also Vaishyas. And then suddenly the last bottom people, like the cobblers, the tanners, the potters, they also had to do that out of force. So caste system is much more of an endogamous, privileged
I have a take on this. Yeah. I agree with everything Sid has said. But the caste system is like a little bit more in that if within each race people like segregated. So it's upheld by the fact that you separate out and you keep those markers to yourself, kind of thing. But that being said, I do a little bit of work on when Indians come to the U.S. and how caste perpetuates or takes form in the US. And when the strong inequality structure of the US, which is racism, intersects with the strong inequality structure of the Indian immigrants, which is the casteism, I see really interesting, strange things happening. But one of them is that historically, upper castes have drawn their roots from the Aryan race. And there was a famous court case a long time ago. It was called the Thind case, and he was a Sikh man, I believe, who wanted to become a US citizen. And his case was that, and at the time, you had to be white. And his case was that I am upper caste. I trace my origin to the Aryan people. It would disgust me to marry somebody who is Mongoloid, which he referred to as essentially lower caste, non-Aryan people. also could have been natives of the Indian subcontinent before the Aryans invaded, or whatever his perception of that was. But because he was also sort of casteist / racist, and he thought of himself as coming from the Aryan race, he felt that he deserved to be white and become a US citizen. So there is a strong Savarna attempt to become white and assimilate into whiteness in opposition to blackness.
Thank you, Saswathi, for sharing. I would like to inform everyone here that Nishant will link a feedback form in the chat. So please feel free to fill that out and let us know if there's any improvements that we need to do, how you like this event, if you'd like to hear from us in the future. Just go ahead and fill in the form. And all right, so since we're kind of nearing the end, I'll ask a more overall question. What do you guys have in store for the future? Are there more events that are going to be like this? What do the both of you have are planning to do?
I'll answer first and in a quick short way, and then Sid can take it over because he sort of initiated this whole thing. So I'm going to continue doing my PhD and doing some research because I think it's really important to have a Dalit scholar in academia. But I also want to be unbiased and just do my research and present my findings that way. And going forward, overall, as a life goal, I would ideally want to just keep educating people about the massive diversity of India and about other social issues, and be an ally to other minority groups in the US, learn from other minority groups, support other things like LGBTQ rights and Black Lives Matter and all those things. And in addition, also try to attempt to bring my own identity out and teach people about that. Sid, I will give it to you now.
Thank you so much, Saswathi. Basically, what I want to do is to tell my story, to tell the story of my people. Like the Oxfam thing that I shared, who tells our stories matters. America is full of Savarnas, privileged caste Indians. So what you hear from them is their story. So I want to tell our stories. So more events like these are something that I want to do. If people have more opportunities like this, where we can open up more avenues where we can discuss these topics, you can reach out to me, Saswathi, Jyoti. We are all here. And there are others in the states who are doing a great job. So please do that. For my own, I love visual narrative. So I've actually come up with a play called Rachel and Siddhartha. Due to COVID, it has taken a little backseat. Otherwise, we would have produced it in October. It's a very simple story. It's the story of an Indian untouchable who comes to America, falls for a mixed race girl, only to realize that she is half Indian and lives with her Brahmin dad, stepmom, and the perfect Indian little sister. So look out for this. It'll be playing soon in a theater near you. So that's what I'm gonna do. And also, I'll just educate myself. I'm also building relationships within the community. I wanna do big things, work with allies. So those are some of the things I'm trying to focus on, but increase the audience, let more people know the truth, know real India.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Saswathi, for sharing. Do you guys want to answer more questions? Because we have a whole list of questions just waiting to be answered.
I just saw one that popped out that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, go ahead, Sid.
No, not about a question. I want to check the logistics of this. Eugene and 3Screen, are you guys okay if we go a little past 7:30?
I think if we go for about 15 more minutes, that will be okay.
Okay, so 15 minutes. Let me, while you ask a question, I do want to share things because it's at another slide. The reason is because it has a lot of references and contact information. That way, if anybody's dropping off, they can take quick notes of what we talked about, who we are, and such things, and some of the reference material that I pointed to.
Right, and since you're talking about reference, someone was asking if there's like a good reference for, or a source that kind of like talks about Gandhi's behavior that you mentioned in this presentation. So
There
like,
is
is there?
Sure thing. There is a whole book written only for that sake by Dr. Ambedkar. The book that I would ask you to search for would be what have Congress and Gandhi done to the untouchables? In fact, in the preface of that book, Ambedkar directly addresses Westerners and say, why, are you only seeing the freedom of the country here, or are you seeing the freedom of the people also? Are you considering it? Are you supporting Congress as a whole and soul of India's freedom, or are you really able to see that it's a party which has its own internal agenda? So the book that I would ask them to read would be What Congress and Gandhi Have Done to the Untouchables by Dr. Ambedkar.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to take this contact or reference slides down after another 30 seconds. So if anybody wants to note something, please do. And Jyoti, we got another 15 minutes, so we can go for maybe a rapid fire. I don't know, but 15 more minutes.
I'm just going to try to ask you all these questions. So casteism in Kerala was so rampant that it was called a madhouse by Swami Vivekananda. Now they lead the way in terms of social upliftment and justice within India. So is that a model for the rest of the India and Indians outside of India to follow when they talk about Kerala? And similar to this, is there something that we can do as a society to create some changes?
Gotcha. I have a little take on that. So as part of my fieldwork, I did do some interviews in Kerala, not as a large chunk, but I talked to a bunch of women's groups there. And from my understanding, Kerala had one of the worst, most oppressive caste practices, like set of caste practices that I had ever heard of. Things like upper caste men forcing lower caste women to have their breasts exposed, and if you wanted to cover up your breasts, you had to pay a tax. And then there was a famous protest by one woman where the tax collector came and she just cut off her breasts and was like, "Here, I don't want to deal with this anymore," and bled to death. And many other terrible practices that I've heard of. And I've heard that because the practices were so bad, people revolted early on. And from what some of these older women told me, 50 years ago, things were very, very bad. 50 years ago, the caste system was practiced and practiced heavily, and untouchability, and not being, and having to hold your hands out to get water from upper caste, and all those kinds of things. But I think people voted in the communist government, and the communist government implemented a lot of education. And I think that turned around a lot of things. So I would say, I mean, I always see education as the path out for Dalit people to educate themselves, and for generally education, critical thinking seeping into everything. And I think for Kerala, that's my take on it. And I would say that's the way out for the rest of, everything.
Thank you, Saswathi. So in Indian schools, Gandhi is just essentially glorified, and there's barely any discussion about the shallow side of Gandhi and the disservice that he did. So is all this information about Gandhi and everything, is this a reemergence, or has it always been a part of mainstream discussion? And this person said that they're hearing so much more now, that there has been they're hearing so much more now than before. Is that related to the rise of Hindu nationalism in India?
No, basically, Dr. Ambedkar's books were found in his attic in the 80s. About 5 or 10 years were taken to get them all into proper editing and everything. And only in the late 90s is when books by Dr. Ambedkar exposing Gandhi, Congress, his ideas on partition of Pakistan, of India, forming of Pakistan, and all have been available. And also they have been a little less available to people other than Maharashtrians, because Maharashtra was his stronghold. So the first time I picked up a book by Dr. Ambedkar was in 2000. And then later on I have learned more. So it is kind of a little bit of new information, even if it's not new for people who know it. The process of actually exposing and getting more people to know about it is kind of new. So nobody has missed anything out. It's basically we are at the right time to learn about all these things, and there is this media, social media and stuff. So there have always been attempts to bury the truth, which is why if you're hearing this for the first time, this is okay.
Thank you. Oh, Saswathi, do you have?
Jyoti, yeah, no, I was just looking at some of the questions earlier, and there was one that I wanted to talk about Never Have I Ever, which I think is like has been the new show on Netflix that people have been watching to get a sense of what Indian American life is growing up. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, and also talk a little bit about just like what I've seen about caste in the diaspora. So one, I feel that me and my family, like as Dalit people, had always been Dalit in India and Indians only outside of India. So in Never Have I Ever, I really connected with Devi in that America treats you as Indian and you're just Indian. You don't have to think about caste identity, which is like kind of nice sometimes. But then when you're among Indians, it all comes back, and so you have to deal with it anyway. But it's just nice to know that there's this huge population of American people who don't know about caste, so it won't matter to them, and they'll just treat you like the average Indian. So in that sense, I connected to a lot of things about Devi, but there were many things that I did not connect to at all, and I thought that it was a clear depiction of upper casteness, and also upper caste people trying to make it seem like this is the narrative. Because Devi's praying to the gods, Devi's going to Ganesh Puja. There's all these different scenes in that show that are all markers of you're an upper caste Hindu. I mean, she's a Tamil Brahmin. And her, like the way her mother speaks, like all these traditions in her family, like they reek of Hindu upper casteness. And it's not the representation, it's not a very diverse representation, but there were things that, you know, as an Indian American I could connect to, but it is, you have to note that it was a depiction of Savarna privilege in many ways. Yeah, so that's my take on Never Have I Ever.
Great, and Saswathi, I have a few more questions for you. Someone would like to know your take on intersectional feminism, and it's like intersection with caste, and also if you could touch on how feminism is in India and how the caste hierarchy works within that.
So, okay, I'm gonna keep this short, but my take on intersectional feminism. So like a lot of times, you know, when you talk about it, it comes up because there's this feeling that white women have left Black women out of feminism. Like, you know, and you really have to bring it together. And I think it's the same in India when Savarna women try to speak for all women, and you're leaving Dalit women's experiences out. And I think there's a little bit more nuance, even, maybe not, I don't know if there is a little bit more nuance, because like what I said before, Black women's stories are different. Their ways of life, the things that they're asked to do, the things that they face in the world are different. And it's the same for Dalit women, the things that they're asked to do, the like normalization of the rape of Dalit women. And nobody seems to care about it, or like the courts don't care, the police don't care. If you go to the police might rape you. You know, those are things that don't necessarily happen to upper caste women the same way, because, you know, it's almost like white women's fragility. Like there is a Savarna version of Karen out there somewhere. And yeah, so that's sort of my take on that. I don't know if that was coherent, but there's definite parallels, and Indian feminism really needs to like make sure that they're at some point centering Dalit women's voices too.
That's great. Also, so how are the indigenous people of India conquered by the Aryans, and like what's happening with that now, and why are Aryan invasions not referred to as the invaders in like the history books that you read, especially Indian history books?
I have read a saying that up until the lion learns how to read and write, the stories told will always be where the hunter has won. For 3,000 years, nobody has been able to write about anything. In fact, Dr. Ambedkar quotes that if you compare invasions of Muslims over India versus Brahmins over Buddhists, Brahmins over Buddhists is far, far, far worse. There were gold. There was like, you know how you put gold on a head? Buddhist monks were hunted and killed by the numeral number by millions. I don't know if millions translates back to 200 CE, but hopefully you get that exaggeration I'm trying to do. The other thing we need to understand is Aryans invaded India, and it was easier for them to invade because they had the power of the horses, which they brought along with them, and also the knowledge of iron ore, which Indus Valley civilization did not have. And a simple way you can see this is, guess what specific ritual Rama does to invade other countries? Ashwamedha Yaga, which pretty much means you let a horse loose, and wherever the horse goes, either the country needs to fight against you, or they just need to surrender to you. That's how pretty much all of India has been won over, with the power of the horses and iron ore by Aryans. Why it's not told in the history books? Because they write the history. That's why we need to tell our stories. How about Jyoti? How about one last question and we wrap up, because we were given a little over 15 minutes and we are reaching there.
Yeah. All right. There's still many questions that weren't answered.
I have just put in the chat ways to reach me, Saswathi, and also LA Public Library. So please just direct your questions at me. This is not the last chance we are going to get to talk. More opportunities like this is what we are actually asking for. So please don't be disappointed if we didn't get to your question. We'll answer on the side or in a new session. So one last question. Jyoti's choice.
I guess this question looks like it would be a good wrap-up question, but what do you think we can do as a society to end the caste system in India? And based off of that, how do you feel these ideas connect or translate to a person who lives in the US?
Should I go? I think the caste system needs to be recognized by like US lawmakers and marked as a form of discrimination to prevent it from becoming like a part of the system in the US, right? So that's something that I think that's needed. And in India, I think Sid has more to talk about how to go on, farther in India, but my take on it is like education. That's how I'm trying to approach it. And then as non-Indians, I think it's really important for when you see people from the subcontinent coming out and supporting minority groups and like sort of labeling themselves as people of color and talking about, how they're like minorities and they're feeling discriminated against. In the same vein, I think it's important to also ask some Savarna people to acknowledge their caste privilege and what they're doing and thinking, and what they're doing to counteract caste privilege. But I think it's really important to hold them accountable to the fact that they come from a really privileged group in India, and in the Indian group of immigrants is a super privileged subgroup of highly educated people who are coming into the US and coming with a bunch of privilege and subconsciously trying to assimilate to the white population. So it's important to sort of gently call them out on that and ask them to re-examine. So that's my take on all of this. I'm going to hand it off to Sid for the more, like India side of things. And
thank you, Saswathi. And hopefully I'll take a minute and then we'll wrap this up. Basically, one of the quick things that I want to share is hope. We have hope. Dr. Ambedkar's books have only been out and about for the last 30 years, and they're still reaching out to people in different states. Like I said, I only got them in my hands 20 years ago. So in the long history of 3,000 years, 20 years, 30 years is not a big thing. Also, remember who have been your allies in this struggle for human dignity and freedom. Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule, when they were kicked out of their own house, a Muslim couple or a brother and sister let them stay at their place. When Dr. Ambedkar wanted to do the Mahad Satyagraha to claim public water for untouchables, Muslims gave him the land to put up a podium and talk to the people. I already explained about Roundtable Conference. Muslims stood by Dr. Ambedkar's side. When Dr. Ambedkar got elected from West Bengal, it was again Muslims and also Namo Shudras. I think there are a section of Sikhs who were living in Bengal area who got him elected. So there are these alliances over there. It's almost like Lord of the Rings. There are these alliances. Go out and seek them. Read your Ambedkar and then find out who did what and how we interact. And for your own personal growth, apply everything that you see in India, apply truth, reason, and your own experience as Buddha taught to everything and anything that you see about Hindu India. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sid and Saswathi, for presenting today. I've learned a lot from you guys, and honestly, it's been such a refreshing thing to, Dalit history. It's something I've grown up with, but you kind of need a refresher course every now and then. So thank you so much for this session. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to build a professional relationship with you guys. You're very knowledgeable in your fields, and it's honestly such a pleasure to hear from you. I would also like to thank the LA Public Library. Thank you so much for giving us this platform and for giving us a voice. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys arranging it for us. So thank you so much for being here. And I would like to thank Nishant for helping me throughout. And I would also like to thank the audience here for being so respectful and for being so engaging. And I really apologize we couldn't get to all of your questions, but as Sid said, you guys can always contact Sid, Saswathi as needed, and just learn more, have a more profound discussion, and just spread awareness about the caste system. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for this Los Angeles Public Library Zoom program. We were able to reach into all of your homes, all over the country, and in many parts of the world tonight for a really standing room only crowd of at least 50 people, if not more, in all these different varieties of channels that we had tonight for this fascinating topic presented to us by Siddhartha Valicharla, Saswathi, Natta, and Jyoti Chavan on the concepts of untouchability, the caste system, and arranged marriages. I learned so much, and I know a lot of you did too. There was so many questions and answers, and many that we couldn't even answer in the time of the program we had allotted. We're going to do our best to communicate with you and to keep up the communication with you in the future. I know the presenters and the hosts are going to do their best to answer those questions personally when they get a chance, because I know each of them are very interested in continuing this dialogue about these issues. And again, thank you so much for everyone for your time, for the audience and the presenters for coming here in this virtual setting to learn a lot about something new for many of us. And if you are interested in continuing with the library programming and following what we're doing, you can always follow us online at the website losangelespubliclibrary.org and also on most social media channels. Thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thanks again, everybody. Bye now.